Behind the Badge, Illinois, giving you the inside scoop on public safety and those who protect and serve. Hear real stories directly from law enforcement experts and get a chance to ask questions about issues you've always wanted to know more about. You have the right to remain informed. This is Behind the Badge, Illinois.
Welcome to another episode of Behind the Badge, Illinois. I'm David Hochberg, your host. We're going to be talking about FTOs today, Field Training Officers, which is a unique perspective on the training of what it takes to be a police officer today. This show is sponsored, like all the other shows, by me at Team Hochberg. If you're looking to purchase a new home or refinance your existing home, we love to have the opportunity to earn your business. We give substantial discounts to all first responders, military, and their families. Now that that is out of the way, let's jump right into it. We've got three of our chiefs, our returning chiefs, on today's show. We've got Kirk down south, we got Dave up north, and we got Chief Lalley out west. So we've got all points in between. Kirk, since you don't have, since we have half the force in Elgin sitting in Chief Lalley's office down there, so it's now time to knock off a 7-Eleven in Elgin.
Here we go.
I just thought I'd let you know that we got like 17 police officers in our office right now. But why don't you lead us off, talk about what an FTO is and the importance of a field training officer. Go.
Oh, fantastic. So a lot of people know that when you get hired as a police officer, they send you to the police academy. And the police academy is a 16-week, they teach you about all the laws. They teach you about what to do as a police officer, what you can do, what you can't. And when you get out of that 16 weeks, that's when you go to your respective departments. And you are assigned, pretty much every single department, you will be assigned a field training officer. This is going to be an officer that's been with the department, has gone through training, that knows how to be a field training officer. They're usually a certified field training officer. They've gone through a training class. And then they are the ones that are going to teach you really how to do the job. It's so the FTO is gonna focus on the practical application of what you're doing. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where, instead of being in scenarios and sitting in a classroom, you're actually out. You're dealing with the general public. You're dealing with criminals. You're dealing with good people. They're going to mentor you. They're going to be role models for you. And it's really, I think the biggest thing is it's the first time that you're really going to be integrated into the culture of your organization. Because if you think about it, those officers have been with other new recruits for the last 16 weeks. They're not in your organization. They're not in your police department. So this is the time where you integrate them into what your organization is all about. This is the culture, how people act, how people are treated in your community, how everything kind of works within your own police department. So it's really, really important that you have excellent FTOs, people that are going to show them the way, show them the DeKalb way, show them the O'Fallon way, show them the Elgin way. Because while we all are police officers in the state of Illinois, we all have different ways and different nuances of doing our jobs. And what our community expects from us is a little bit different from community to community. So I think we have a great show here, and I think we have a lot of good perspectives here with the FTOs and some of the field training officers and some of the new recruits here. So all right.
How many do you have down in O'Fallon? You got a force of about 50. How many FTOs do you guys have down there?
We've probably got about 10 or 12 different FTOs. Okay. Sometimes the FTOs are over in detectives. So at any given time, we'll have probably 8 FTOs on the street that can train the different recruits. Generally, we can handle, with a department of about 50, we can handle about 4 new recruits at a time without, kind of burning your FTOs out. You got to understand that police officers, they ride in the car by themselves all this time, and then you put a new FTO in the car with them for 1, 2, 3 months. It gets a little bit. It's a little different change of pace. So we try to mix things up a little bit.
All right. So Dave, I'll tell you what. Let's go down to Chief Lalley. Because they're bringing the oxygen in there because there's not enough oxygen in the rooms. Too many people. The fire marshal's going to call and say we can thin it out a little bit.
We have a disconnect here. We can't hear you.
No, it's perfectly strong. I was at the Elgin Country Club last night, by the way. I forgot a going away party for Mike Lee at Kane County Teachers Credit Union. It's a going away party. So I don't know why I brought that up, but since we're talking to the chief of Elgin, so why don't you introduce Chief Lalley, your FTOs first, and I'll throw it over to Chief Byrd to introduce his FTOs, and then we'll dive deeper into the responsibilities and also the officers who are also in the room with you about their experience going through the program. So,
Yeah,
Chief
sure.
Lalley, introduce your FTOs, please.
Yeah, so just a real quick too, in Elgin, we have 195 sworn officers. About 161 of those are police officers in the police union. So of those, we have 16 field training officers, so who are active. Now, we have a lot of officers who used to be field training officers, but if they're assigned to our investigation division, they are not active. So we have 16 active FTOs. And again, just, they do a really, they're the most important people in a police department in terms of when people come into your agency and learning the culture, and they have more influence than the police chief, 100%, because they see people every day. So I'm here with 6 officers. 3 are field training officers, and I'm actually going to have them introduce themselves here in a minute. And then 3 other officers who recently just got out of field training or who are currently in field training. And I'll just have them introduce their names so the audience knows who they are. There are officers on the street in Elgin right now. There are not, and everyone in this room is not. So I just want to, I like to bring more people so that they get exposed and that the community gets to see and the public gets to see the people who actually do the work every day. So just for the audience and just for the record. And Kirk, don't give me any hard time today on this podcast. I know that's your thing. All right, so we're gonna go around, and Steve, they're just gonna introduce themselves. They're gonna say whether an FTO or how long that they have, and then they obviously will come back to their perspective.
I'm Officer Steve Elkhorn. Currently assigned to night shift. I've been an FTO for 9 years now. I've been on patrol for 14 years, so plenty of experience there.
I'm Officer Soto. I'm assigned to the afternoon patrol shift. I got hired about a year ago, but I've been on the streets for about 5 months.
I'm Officer Velasquez, midnight shift as well, patrol. I've been with the department for about a year and a half, been on the streets by myself since May.
I'm Officer Vargas. I've been on for about 6 or 7 months. I'm currently in the afternoon shift, and I am on my 2nd month of FTO.
My name is Alyssa Zopp. I'm currently an FTO on afternoon shift. I've been with the department for about 4.5 years, and I've been an FTO for about a year and a half.
I'm John Varga. I'm on day shift. I'm a field training officer there. I've been doing it since the end of basically 2018. Steve's the most experienced FTO we have here, and I'm right behind that. But yeah, I've been here since 2010. So.
Do you get any emails for Officer Vargas, and does how often does the email get screwed up because you guys have a similar last name?
David, I guarantee you that's going to happen very often. I actually get emails for we have a couple Officer Vegas, so we get I get emails for Vega and then vice versa. So
subpoenas, I'm sure.
And subpoenas, court, yeah.
Subpoenas.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I guess if your last name starts with a V, you got a good shot at getting a job in Elgin.
Number 1 on the application.
I'm just saying. All right, so do we cover all of your officers down there, Chief Lalley?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go up to DeKalb. Let Chief Byrd introduce his 2 fine officers up in DeKalb. Dave?
All right, so thank you. And like I said, thank you all the officers on the podcast. We appreciate you guys, the hard work you're doing. We know how tough it is to be a field training officer and to be a probationary officer on the program. Of course, I think we all, myself, Kirk, and Chief Lalley, can all attest that we were FTOs at some point in our career, so we know what it's like. I did it for a long time. I enjoyed it. It was probably one of the most fulfilling parts of my career, to be honest with you, Dave, because you get the opportunity to teach. And that's always extremely important and fulfilling. And then one of the other points is that it gives you your first opportunity to be in a supervisory role. So if you have any admirations of being a sergeant or above, this is where it kind of starts, because you are in a supervisory type, role when you're dealing with your probationary officer. And I think that's just the start of it. So, but I will turn it over to Officer Cooper and Officer Ortiz. I'll let them give their own testimony and give you their credentials. So Officer Cooper, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'm Officer Cooper. I have been an officer here for 4 years and an FTO for about 2.5. I started my career here as a volunteer, so I got some training there too.
Wow. A volunteer. And then you became, so you just volunteer and they're like, this is kind of cool. You want to be a police officer.
When I was at college, they were at a local community Kish college. They were in need of people to help out our canine program for one of the retired canines. So that's how I learned about the volunteer opportunity here, started that, and then became a CSO, and then got sworn in after that.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
all right,
Dave, while she's there, I just want to make the point that, people who volunteer here, if you're an intern here, if you are a community service officer here, we try to make sure that we get you into a uniform, because we know you, we spend time with you. You're a safe, candidate for us, because we've already done the homework on you, and we've seen you in the building. So anyone that's in that role here at the DeKalb Police Department, we try to make sure that we get them in a uniform as soon as possible. So, Bessie's not the only officer in this building that started either as an intern or a volunteer. So that's commonplace here in DeKalb. So, and then go ahead, Officer Ortiz. Go ahead.
I'm Officer Ortiz. I've been with DeKalb for only a year. Before DeKalb, I was with Kane County for 5 years. And before Kane, I was with Cook County as a CO for 3 years. Not an FTO.
A little bit of experience.
Yeah, and like I said, Dave, earlier, when Ortiz gives his testimony, it'll be a little different from some of the other officers, because, like I said, he came into a role. He was already a police officer. So he knows what it takes to be a police officer, but he did have to learn the DeKalb way, which is a different perspective. So I'm sure that'll be, like I said, a little different from everyone else.
All right, Officer Ortiz, no pressure, but seeing that you've been through 3 chiefs, how does Chief Byrd rate with the other 2?
Don't answer it.
He's at the top.
Oh, man, I love you, Ortiz. Thank you, brother. Right here, man.
Yeah, that was. And you're welcome. It's holiday time. I'm sure bonuses are coming out.
That's right.
I know DeKalb's got the discretionary fund loaded with cash someplace, so I'm sure you'll have.
It's in the basement.
Yeah, a very thick. All right, that was late. All right, let's go to the most experienced guy here, officer here, I should say, Officer Elkhorn. 9 years as an FTO.
Yes, sir.
What type of psychological treatment do you need after going through 9 years of an FTO? Because that's a lot of work. I mean, you're taking, and I say that in jest, but you're taking fresh officers right out of school who think it's, have got all these ideas of grandeur in their head, what a police officer is all about. You did the simulator, you do all that, put them in the front seat of a car and you pull somebody over, and now it's real. Right now, you're not dealing with somebody in a simulator, right? I killed a person in a simulator, dead center mass, by the way, good shot. I was walking through a school. It was a school shooting situation. The guy turned around and he had a cell phone. And I thought it was a gun. I popped him. Okay, and that was a simulator. Okay, I don't take it easy, Kirk, but it was a good shot. All right, but yeah, I killed the guy with the cell phone, but. Now you're taking officers out of 16 weeks of training, like the chief just said. How many of those officers, when like we talked about, the rubber hits the road, and you get a call, you flip the lights on, you start going 70, 80 miles an hour, you get to the person, you pull them over. What's going on? Talk about the people that made it, and talk about those officers that thought it was great, then they get in the heat of the action and didn't make it.
So I'll tell my trainees that I call it tunnel vision. That first day that I have them drive, which is usually night 2, it's like they've never driven before. They could be somebody that's been driving for 16 years. And I've learned to expect it. And I even warn them ahead of time about it every time they do it. And then take that and you get on top of that, you get a call for service, domestic, or even our first traffic stop, whatever it may be. And it's like a deer in headlights, and they get the tunnel vision, and I warn them about the tunnel vision. And then once we're done, we debrief the call and everything. And I talk them through getting out of that tunnel vision. And each time it gets easier and easier, but some people, like the ones that maybe have a hard time making it through the field training program, excuse me, they have a hard time getting past that tunnel vision and being able to think outside the box and work with the community and work through problems.
I'll ask the same question to Officers Cooper and Ortiz, and I'll come back to Officer Zopp. What's the biggest challenge that you guys have seen, with driving around with the inexperienced and with that first call?
I think a lot of it, people come from different backgrounds and things like that. And part of it makes a difference too, whether have they spent any time in DeKalb? Is this something that's comfortable to them? But for some of them, it's literally, and I'm sure for other agencies too, it's literally their first time seeing this street ever. It's like, okay, well, now you're starting to figure out, well, you're expected and we're giving you instructions, but you're figuring all this out for your first time, like the other FTO said there, while also thinking like, oh, now I'm going to this call for the first time and I've never had an actual experience with somebody outside of a simulator. It's real. These are real people with emotions that aren't predicted by a computer screen, or that the instructors aren't, guiding how the interaction is going to go. So, you're really there to be their mentor to make sure that they're safe and that, other people are safe also, but they still need to learn.
Got it. Officer Ortiz, I'm gonna change it up for you and Officer Zopp. What was the biggest challenge that you had cleaning up after somebody's first call?
So the big thing for me is not, because I'm not an FTO, but when you got a new guy, you're kind of having to make sure you got to watch over their back and make sure they don't slip up or do anything dangerous. Nothing too crazy for me. Fortunately, everything's been pretty good, but just kind of watching officer safety stuff and making sure that your back's not turned to somebody and your gun sight's not, you can't, just officer safety stuff. Nothing crazy.
Got it. I misunderstood. Officer Ortiz is currently going through FTO because even though he's been to 2 other agencies, Chief Byrd, he's learning the DeKalb way, driving around with an FTO.
Yeah, he's already went through the program. So Officer Ortiz has been on his own for a while, but like I said, his perspective is just different because, if you imagine that, hey, I'm a police officer, I already know how to do this job. I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years in another jurisdiction. And then all of a sudden, you have to be trained by, in some cases, sometimes the FTO is, well, number one, by age is younger than you. I mean, so that's a struggle for some people, for laterals who have been on the job 8 or 9 years, they might be 35 years old. And then they're being trained by someone who's 23, 24 years old. So then, you have that dilemma. And then some people struggle with that, and I want to give Officer Ortiz some praise because he did an amazing job by being humble enough to let someone else teach him at least the DeKalb way. He definitely knew what he was doing. He was top-notch police officer before he got here. That's why we picked him. But I did have a conversation with him. I said, hey, look, you're going to have to learn the DeKalb way because it's different from where you were in Kane County. The streets, geography is important. A lot of officers fail when they get through. Geography is tough. I mean, I worked in Chicago my whole career on the west side of Chicago. And even though I lived on the south side of Chicago, the west side of Chicago was totally different. I mean, hell, they didn't have numbers. I mean, it's 2 streets, it's Independence and Gladys. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta memorize these streets because there are no numbers, so things so geography is so tough. And just like Betsy said, people go to their calls for the first time, picking up that mic, Dave, picking up that mic for the first time. Oh my God, man, you would think it was like you were holding a grenade or something, it's like, and I know these officers will get to that because it's so tough, but But Ortiz has been doing an amazing job, and I just appreciate him being humble enough to allow himself to be trained by someone who might have been a little younger than him.
Yeah, so
Office, oh, I'm sorry.
I'll piggyback off that. Like a lot of my FTOs had less time on than me. Well, it was kind of nice because they're all young, they're all ready to get out there and hit some traffic stops, look for some dope, look for some guns. So it was like riding a 2-man car. So it wasn't
Cool.
really like an FTO experience, but more so with the partner. And then to piggyback on the geography stuff, I was a county guy, so I was used to just major roads and not so much the small towns. I did work a lot in Aurora. I grew up in Aurora, so I knew Aurora a lot. But going up into Elgin, that was a little bit tougher for me because I didn't know the roads like that. And then coming to DeKalb, it's a lot different where they don't go off cross streets for traffic stops. A lot of it's all block numbers. So I learned in all the block numbers and the streets, and that was a lot different.
I want to throw it over to Officer Zop. You're an FTO. I want to qualify this now after screwing up. You're an FTO, correct, Officer Zop?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So question for you. I'll ask you the same question that I asked Officer Ortiz. When you're the FTO, you're out there with an officer that you're training, you're seeing something, maybe they're not following the right way of doing something. I don't know, the 300 things that could go on. When do you get involved? Right. So you don't have a civil, a lawsuit on your hand because the officer did something incorrect with the 1,700 laws we got. That's me saying it, not the ILACP. So when do you try to cut through the fog and then interject yourself while giving the officer who's in training enough rope to do their own job?
Yeah, I think it's obviously it's very hard, and I think being an FTO, it requires a lot of patience. That's my biggest hurdle, is not stepping in. Obviously, like if it's a dire situation where they're putting themselves in jeopardy or officer safety, yeah, I'm gonna step in. But a lot of the times I don't step in because I want them to learn. If I keep stepping in or I keep interrupting them or I tell them, hey, ask this question or that question, then they're not gonna learn. I will say we are hiring people who are very young too. So this is a lot of people's first job, that, they haven't experienced life or anything like that. So I usually ask my PPOs, and I think Soto and Velasquez can contest to this because I train them. I ask them, hey, have you ever been punched in the face? I asked them that the first day, have you ever been in a fight or anything like that? And 9 times out of 10, they say, no, I have not. And so for me as an FTO, that wakes me up and tells them, yeah, we're about to go on the street. You're about to be called every name in the book. You're about to experience people at their worst. And, you just got to jump into it. It's like jumping into cold water.
So if they haven't been punched in the face, do you punch them in the face for them?
Thank you.
That was coming.
No, we haven't
beat me
gotten to
to
that. No,
Chief,
We don't
close your
do
ears.
that
no,
here,
we don't
Kirk.
do that here.
We don't do that at the Elgin Police Department, Kirk.
There's
All
no
right.
beating anyone in.
Good
I don't know
training.
what goes down in a Fallon, but not here.
Thank you, Kirk. We're both sick and demented, and we're thinking the same thing. So Officer Zops goes, you ever been punched in the face? No. Bam. Okay, now you're ready. Let's go. Okay.
Oh, no, never.
No, never. At least not in plain sight where there's cameras. Okay, so I'm going to go to Officer Varga down in Elgin, who's also an FTO. So, Officer Varga, from your perspective, driving around, you've got typically, unlike Officer Ortiz up in DeKalb, who came there with experience, I would assume that most of these officers that you're going out with have limited to no experience other than what they learned in the 16 weeks at the academy. Officer Zop mentioned you need a lot of patience for this job, which would immediately disqualify me because I've got none. What do you see on the psychological aspect when you're driving around and you had a stressful call? What's it like counseling that officer that might be freaking out a little bit or going through a little bit of like, what the hell did I get myself into? What's that conversation like in the car after a call?
And I'm glad you mentioned the psychological aspect of police work, because I think I've trained probably 3 of the people, at least for one day in this room, at least 35 overall throughout my entire time as a field training officer. So my style as a younger officer was a little different than it is now. I'm more mature as an officer now. So like I kind of take on like a parent figure now that I'm almost 40 and I am an actual parent. But yeah, and so anyone who rides with me now will know that we always have conversations about life, about how to survive at a police department, whether like if you're upset about something, you're upset with a coworker, you're upset about a call, how to properly handle it or process it, who to talk to, whether it's someone here, which I always recommend, but if you have someone at home or a family member, a friend that you can confide in, to help get you through the rough days, because there's going to be a lot of things around here that you see and do and experience that you've never experienced before, especially as a 21 to 25-year-old. I mean, I hate to use the word, but kid coming out and being a police officer. And like Alyssa said, that's oftentimes your very first job. And your experience now is you're walking into this apartment and everyone's yelling at each other. There's blood everywhere and all sorts of stuff. I mean, that stuff's extremely stressful. Even at now, at almost 15 years in, there's still stuff I see that I'm like, I'm going to remember the rest of my entire life. So I try to impart some wisdom on them on who to talk to. If it's me, if it's someone else in their family, it's got to be someone, because the longer you bottle that stuff up, as I've learned, and I tell everyone that I've trained, like the reason I'm telling you this and training you this is because I screwed it up myself earlier in my career, or even later in my career. Plenty of things I screwed up. So I try to pass on that wisdom of how to survive as the police for as long as I have, as hopefully I can be here as long as the chief here has. So maybe not 30 years, but maybe 25, I'm hoping. So.
Well, we talked before and you had mentioned something about becoming the chief of Elgin. I don't know if you wanted to bring that up now.
Hey, go
Oh,
for it.
no. I mean, on that topic, you were mentioning about I think it was Chief Byrd that was talking about FTO being a pipeline to being a supervisor. I've had opportunities to speak for promotion, to put in, I actually pulled out of a process a few back. I just love what I do now. As the chief mentioned, Chief Lalley mentioned that field training officers are among the most important, probably even the most important role at a police department. And I really take pride in the role. I specifically love getting people in month one, because that's when you're really going to get your hooks into someone about preaching the culture of the police department and how the rest of your career can be dramatically impacted by your month one FTO. And if you have a bad experience in month one with your FTO, it could really sour the rest of your career or make it at least harder to overcome like a bad first month. So I try really hard to make sure that that's all. Like, I love being an FTO. I love being on day shift. I'm a big family person too. So I preach to all my trainees, like, hey, you know what? Keep your life outside of the police department. Don't be friends with just police officers or other first responders. Keep all your friends and family that you had before, and go from there, because they're going to keep you grounded. In police work, we see lots of stuff. Especially at the patrol level, we see lots of stuff that we just gotta, like, it's easy to get jaded. I got jaded 5 years in. I'll freely admit it. Like, you just see a bunch of stuff and you're like, man, everyone sucks. But then I got put into a position in the community policing, and I kind of reopened my eyes to the fact that, hey, you know what? Everyone doesn't suck. Like, at patrol, we're sent to calls. And we're sent there for people's worst day. Though for that person, the day before might have been having the best day of their life. And if we had met them then, that maybe we would have liked them or would have had a better time. So I try to pass that along to people as well. Like, hey, we're dealing with people at their worst moment. So don't hold it against them. Everyone's a human. Everyone makes mistakes. We make mistakes as police officers all the time. So yeah, anything you take personal in this job is just gonna make everything harder for you in the long run. So,
Hey,
And
Dave.
one thing too, I want to mention, Dave, real quick, when Alyssa and John and Steve talk about being an FTO and kind of that parent figure, when I'm hiring officers, I was 21 years old when I got hired, right? So when I'm hiring officers and there's a 21, 22-year-old officer sitting in front of me, I literally could be their mom. Like this puts it in perspective. Some of the field training officers could be probably aunts or uncles, maybe parents eventually. So not only are you doing, this role is so important, and I appreciate our FTOs, and I appreciate John and Alyssa and Steve for what they do, because it's not easy. You have to teach them what the expectations of, what my expectations are for us, for the community, for the department. But, you have that pressure, knowing the technical part of the job, but then, you have people who have no life experience. And so how do they deal with adversity? How do they build their resilience? And so they're also giving that life advice, and you need people who are grounded. Your FTOs need to be good people who are grounded in their own lives. You cannot give to people when you can't give to yourself or take care of yourself. You have to be, mentally, physically, emotionally, you have to be ready to take on other people's problems and then be able to give some good advice, some guidance, right? So that's the other part where the FTOs, when, I entrust them to do, and, I'm not calling them and saying, what'd you talk to your recruit about today? That's none of my business, right? Like, are they going to pass? Are they going to fail? Are they good? Are they not? When I've had to say, hey, we invest a lot of money in our recruits here in Elgin, and we invest a lot of time. And if we have officers that are struggling, we extend their field training a couple months, because the goal is to hire people to make them to be successful, not to get rid of them. But at some point when it's a danger to themselves or to the community, it's the FTOs who I'm saying, well, what are the FTOs saying? Do they believe that this person can do it? Because I'm not sitting in the car with them, and I trust my FTOs that they're going to give me that good advice and be fair with them. And I always say, have we done everything possible to help this person? Have we as an agency failed? If we've done that, we need to start doing what we need to do. If we can say we've done everything and then some, then I don't second guess my FTOs. Tell me what it is, and it's on to the next. So I really appreciate you guys and what you do, and the new officers here for what you do. And Officer Cooper and Ortiz, appreciate what you guys do as well. So I just wanted to mention that too, that it's not just training them on the job, it's training them sometimes on life, which that stuff could be a little bit harder, right? So I wanted to mention that.
All right, so we've got officers Soto, Vasquez, and Vargas, correct?
Sure.
So
Soto, yes.
Soto,
Velasquez,
Velasquez, and Vargas. Did all three of those officers, Chief Lalley, have FTO experience with Elkhorn, Zop, and Varga?
I know you could ask them, maybe if they want to, yeah. I don't know who their FTO, I mean, I know Alyssa trained a couple because she's staring at them.
Yeah.
She's threatening them on what they're gonna say through her eyes. Right?
I had Alyssa for a week.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's throw Officer Velasquez under the bus first. So Officer Velasquez, how many of the current FTOs in the room did you train with?
I had Officer Varga for a day, and then I had Officer Zop for month 2 on afternoons.
All right, Officer Vargas, how many of the FTOs in the room did you train with?
I had Officer Elkhorn for month 1, and I haven't trained with Officer Zop or Officer Varga.
Okay, and Officer Soto, out of the 3 FTOs in the room, which ones did you train with?
I had Officer Varga for month 1, and then Officer Zop for month 3.
Okay, so Officer Velasquez kind of feels like a DA interview, doesn't it? All right, so Officer Velasquez, during your time with the FTOs at the Elgin Police Force, what's the greatest thing and most important thing that you think that you learned?
Well, you learn a lot. So with Officer Stop, I had her all month 2 on afternoons. For her, I feel that the biggest thing I learned was officer safety and tactics. She would always quiz me on how fast am I getting out of the car? If you would have done this differently, it could have gone worse, or just different situations and how the things that you do, even the smallest things, can affect the end result. So that was a big takeaway from my time with her. And the one day that I was with Officer Varga, we had a very eventful day, but I learned a lot about that day specifically. It was big on investigating and doing your own work and just pretty much doing everything on your own and not putting it off onto somebody else. We had a very long day, and for a string of crimes in our area that we just kept going one after the other. And then interviewing the suspect who eventually we were able to charge. It's just a lot, and it's very informative, and it's really, I guess the word would be just it was really good. It was just a really good time, and I honestly, even now that I've been on my own for a decent amount of time now, I always think back to what did Zop tell me that one time, or this is like that one thing I did with Zop that one day, and she told me not to do this, so I'm not going to revert back to that. Or how did I do the paperwork with Varga, and what did he tell me? It's just a lot goes into it, and there's just a lot of knowledge and building that you get off of just everybody, really, and everybody has different experiences too.
Hey, Dave, the interesting thing she says is that, the impact that FTO has on you. And I think she mentioned how even after she's off FTO program, those FTOs still kind of they're your mentors. They're there to answer questions. So while they're not riding around in the car with you every day, 12 hours a day or whatnot, they're still available to those new officers to mentor. I mean, I think everybody in this room probably, or everybody on this podcast, with the exception of you, Dave, remembers who their FTOs were. And, that's probably one of the most impressionable times in your entire career. I remember more about my time on FTO than I remember any other time in my career. Just the dumb stuff that happened and the fun stuff and the learning and everything like that. So,
Yeah,
Hey, Chief Lalley, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chief Byrd.
To Kirk's point, I had 12 FTOs in my program. I went through 12 separate FTOs.
That's what we call it. Those are usually problem.
Yeah, right.
People that have problems, they go through that many FTOs, Dave, just so you know.
No, it wasn't
that's not normal.
Look, I was speeding through that thing, but no, I mean, in 1989, we had guys who were having kids, so all of a sudden you might be with an FTO, all of a sudden that you don't have him anymore because he's going on baby leave. So now you get another guy. And then I had one guy who got promoted. So off he goes. And then I got another one. So, I mean, so I guess all I'm saying is it was beneficial for me because I learned so much from all of them. I learned things from each one of them that I incorporated into and molded me as a police officer. There were some things that I didn't like. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I had some FTOs did things I didn't like. I was like, I'm not doing it that way. I said I didn't, and that was okay. At the end of the day, you're like a sponge, Dave, and you pick up something from each one of them, and then that's how you mold yourself as a police officer. So it's important that you do that. Personalities, I mean, you have conflict. That's just real. I mean, some guys and some officers just don't jive personality wise. It's tough, but you still got to get through that. And one of the things I was told early on when I was a rookie, it was like, hey, officer so-and-so doesn't do it that way. Oh man, that's like the death, man. You can't pass on that. At the end of the day, however that FTO wants you to do it, you better do it that way because they're grading you and they're gonna hold you responsible for what they teach you. They don't want to hear about what Officer Jackson taught you because they don't, that's irrelevant to them. They want to say, look, this is how we do it in this car. If you don't like it, now this is back in the day, you won't do that now. Back in the day, they say you can get out. You can get out the car and you can figure it out by yourself. So of course we don't do that anymore, thank God. But in 1989, they had no problem with telling you to get out of the car, Dave.
So Chief Lalley, I think I have a new slogan for recruits, and you can thank Officer Velasquez for this, for a really good time joining the Elgin Police Department.
Oh my God. No. That would never fly, my friend. No, we would fine tune what she was talking about. We would take that and we'd fine tune that. So great idea. Just we gotta,
Northern NIU marketing grad up here. Just thought marketing savant.
Yeah, well, major fail.
Just wanted to throw that out there. You're welcome. Fail. Okay, so we got Officer Soto and Officer Vargas. Who's more senior?
Me, Officer Soto.
Okay, Officer Soto, what did you take from your experience that you could share with our viewers? You've been on your own since when?
For about a month and a half now.
Okay, so what's it like getting out, graduating from the FTO program just recently, month and a half, 6 weeks, right? to getting those keys and getting behind the wheel and going on that first call with all the training back cataloged in your memory?
Yeah, no, it's very different stepping out on your own. I remember that first day. It's kind of scary just not having that person next to you anymore. And I was very lucky to have Officer Barga and Officer Zop. Every day that I'm out there, everything that I do is, hey, what would Officer Barga do? What would Officer Zop do? What did they teach me? And I still do a lot of things that they taught me. And I've had people say like, oh, that's the Barga way. So yeah, every day just taking everything they taught me and putting it onto the job. And yeah.
I'll throw it over to Officer Vargas. Officer Vargas, same question.
I feel like I always wanted to be an officer, so I kind of prepared myself. Just like studying, reading up on what I had to do to be successful. But despite all that, I still felt like I learned most of what I learned in month one with Officer Alcorn. I remember telling him, oh, I've had 4 months of training already. I learned more this first week than I did during those 4 months. It's very eye-opening, mostly in the academy. We do a lot of scenarios, but the role players are not going to punch you in the face. Versus when you're on the street, you don't know if somebody's gonna do something to you or something like that. So it's very eye-opening. I learned a lot on how to like talk to people, depending on how they react to what you ask them or how you ask them.
What is the way that Officer Alcorn told you to get out of the car if you didn't like it, like Officer Byrd just mentioned? Is there, what's the 21st century way of saying "suck it up, Buttercup"? I mean, what's a politically correct way of saying that today? Did he drop any words of wisdom on you?
No, he wanted me out of the car fast. He said,
Out of the car fast.
You never know who's in the other car, or they're gonna start running out or something like that.
It's a nice way to cover Officer Velasquez. Alcorn, I mean. So I think Officer Alcorn, you owe him lunch. So I'm going to go back up to DeKalb real quick. So Officer Cooper, you've got an experienced officer like Officer Ortiz next to you, but let's say Officer Ortiz wasn't as experienced as he is, and he's got the breadth of knowledge, and you know that it's his first day behind the wheel. Are you checking in with him on a daily basis? Are you making that call through the through the department channels, or are you calling him or her on their cell phone, checking in, just doing a safety and wellness check, if you will, because it's their first day, it's their first week, it's their second day, whatever it is. What are you doing as an FTO just to check in to make sure that your trainee is got their faculties together and is you basically take the willies out of the first couple of days?
Yeah, I think like Chief Kirk had said, somebody had said, you're so impressionable to them, especially in those first couple months that they're here. It's okay to let them know, like, we were all here, we were all in this position at one point in time. It's okay. Take a deep breath. Let it out. I'm here for you to make sure that you're safe. I'm here to watch you, but it's okay to feel those things. Like, this is a really big girl, big boy job. This isn't, not that other jobs aren't important, but like, this is real. This job is real. This is people's lives. This is your life. So it's really important to just let them know it's okay. It's just my preferred method. It's what my FTOs did with me. After every call, we're going to talk about it, debrief about it. If there's bigger things that need to be talked about later, we'll do that. But, we might be going call to call to call. So, hey, I think you did really well on that call. Do you have any questions that we can address right now? How do you think that went in your eyes? Those are important. And also checking in with, maybe I have somebody we're doing a FTO method right now that's AB and then a break for shadow and then CD and then they have another shadow. Still checking in with people that I've trained if I had them in the beginning. I'm checking in with them even after they've moved on to their next FTO because maybe we jive together really well and I just want to see how they're doing. But it's important to let them know that other officers, we still care about them even after they're out of our car. It's not just one person, not just one FTO, like all of us as a collective, as FTOs and senior officers, we care about them and we want them to do well. So it's important that they know that, and they want to be heard. Like if something critical happened, how are you doing? Because maybe you don't want to talk about it with your FTO in the car that's right there, or maybe you do, but how are you doing? Like there's people here that care about you and they want to make sure that you're here for, to hit the retirement in your career, right? That's what we all strive to get to, is our retirement. Let's take care of them, especially while they're young, and then they can use those tools to take care of other people as the generations go on here at the PD too.
Officer Ortiz, I'm going to nominate you for the strongest bladder ever on a podcast. That's your third 16-ounce drink. As a 57-year-old man, I'd be in the bathroom at least 6 times in the past 40 minutes, and you just keep powering down whatever you're drinking. It's quite impressive. I just wanted to
more important.
I just wanted to compliment you on your bladder control, because as you get older, I'm telling you, you'll be running to the bathroom. Just Kirk and Dave are laughing because they understand. So you've been through 3 of these programs, okay? So you give a unique perspective. So for the officers that are coming through the academy, or somebody that might be thinking of going through the academy, becoming a police officer, what's the biggest thing that you could, the best words of advice after going through 3 different, you got the county, I forgot, Kane County was one of them, Cook County was another one, and now up in DeKalb with the DeKalb Way. What would you stress is the importance of this time, and what's the biggest thing that an officer could get out of the however many weeks that each agency has for an FTO program?
So the biggest thing I'd say would be to have an open mind. You don't know everything. None of us know everything. Every day is something different, right? Every FTO has a different perspective, a different set of tools. They have different experiences. So, have an open mind, be quiet and listen. That's the biggest thing. Take whatever piece of advice they give you. Maybe it's not totally beneficial to you, but you can take a little bit from it and apply it to something else or another day. Every FTO is going to teach you their way, and your job is to just be an open book and just absorb all the information you can get. Even now, even as going through the 3rd time through FTO, I had to make sure, I had that mindset of, this is a new department, what you did before is a totally different agency. This is a new agency. So coming in, I had to just suck it up and listen and just, basically be a new guy again. Just listen.
Shut up, listen, and learn, right? Just
basically
right. Shut up, listen, and learn. That's what they told me when I was going through training. And the first month out of college was, kid, you think you know everything, you don't know squat. Shut up, listen, and learn.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Okay, that's what got me through life. All right, I'm gonna make another round with Zop, Varga, and Elkhorn, and then we're gonna throw it to the Chiefs because we like to keep these about an hour. So we'll start with Elkhorn. What was the toughest call you had to make? I'm trying to phrase this properly, of somebody that you knew wasn't qualified and wasn't going to make it. What's that like, and how do you, and the same question for Varga and Zop, officers Varga and Zop, how do you break that? Do you break it to the officer or do you break it to the chief? How does that work?
So for me, it's I don't like giving surprises to my trainees. I'm an open book with them on everything, the good, the bad, and the indifference. So when I have a trainee that's not, they're struggling in certain areas, and I'm starting to get the feeling that they might not be suitable for the Elgin Police Department, maybe. I have very frank conversations with them because, again, I don't like surprises myself. So I would expect them to not want to have a surprise like that because for a lot of them, they're younger officers in their early 20s, and this is their dream job. So unfortunately, one of the hard parts of my job as an FTO is breaking that news to them that you might not be able to be a police officer here in the city of Elgin, and we talk through it. And like Chief Lalley has mentioned that we don't want to set anybody up for failure. We want to set them up for success. So I explain to them what I think their deficiencies are, and then we try and talk about how can we fix them. What can I do as an FTO to teach you better so that you understand? Because we're all adult learners here and everybody learns differently. So maybe I'm teaching something that they're not picking up on due to a method I'm using, and I'm open to suggestions to change a method so that they're successful. And we talk through it. There's never a day where it's like, hey, FYI, today you're going to have a meeting with the chief, you're done. There is never a surprise like that. I don't think that benefits anybody. And I'm sure the chief wouldn't appreciate having a new officer come into office, surprised that they're having the talk. So.
And I think to that point too, what Steve just said, when I hire officers and I swear them in, and then they go so it's very positive, it's an exciting day. They go to the academy, they come back, I meet them in field training before they go out in field training. We do kind of like an in-house academy. And I literally tell them, if there's an issue, the first people you're going to hear from are your FTOs. Then you're going to hear from our training sergeant. Then you're going to hear from your commander. Then you're going to see the deputy chief. And that will be the end of it. So I don't usually, with new recruits, I don't really, if they have to go, that's the deputy chief. So I lay it out for them, like, so they know, hey, I'm now to the commander phase here. I better this is getting serious. And then when you see the deputy chief, and this is after we've exhausted everything, right? Like months of training, extra training, time. It doesn't matter about the overtime, the comp. I don't care about that. Like, get people where they need to be. But once it gets to the point where, the feedback's coming through and we know it's not a good fit for Elgin, like Steve said, it could be a better fit for some other agency. Because people are people, you want to treat them with respect and dignity, which is important no matter what. And delivering bad news, I'm sure, Kirk and Dave can join me in this. Delivering bad news is not the favorite part of our jobs as chiefs. That's one of the worst things, but you have to do it fairly, politely, respectfully, and with humanity. So, I like that you mentioned that.
Officer Zopp and Officer Varga.
No, I think Alcorn and Chief hit it pretty well on. I mean, obviously it's a tough conversation. I think if you start noticing issues early on, maybe pulling them aside, and, discussing with them, even like if you're not on shift, having like a personal day with them, going and getting coffee, having a conversation, asking them like, what can I do as a training officer that I'm not doing? Like, what do you need? Like I said, it's a tough conversation to have, but I think Chief said it earlier. What we don't want to see is that you go on the street, you get yourself hurt or get somebody else hurt. Yeah.
Officer Varga.
Yeah, I mean, I'll co-sign on everything everyone else said. I mean, Steve has a lot more experience in this than the other two of us in the room. He seems to draw the short straw sometimes with no offense intended, like it's just happened. The luck of the draw works out that way for Steve. I've had a few myself, and it is hard to tell someone that this is their dream job. It's what they've always wanted to do, and they're just not good at it. And you just got to be honest with them. I tell all my recruits, I say, nothing that appears in your daily observation report or DOR should be a surprise. And if it is, I apologize. I thought I might have thought that I talked to you about it and we didn't. So I tell them, like, if there's anything in there that surprises you, please tell me, because I definitely want to talk about it. Because if it's in your DOR, it's something that we should have already talked about throughout the day. Speaking of DORs, we recently remodeled kind of how we grade. I guess grade's not a really great way to do it, but how we evaluate our trainees has recently changed as of like, probably it was a year and a half ago. Maybe the way we used to do it it made everyone depressed. And it was a lot harder because it was either like you either were meeting the standard or you weren't. So almost everyone was getting no's up until like month 3 or 4. And that, as a trainee, like you could see, like, okay, even if you explained it to them, like, hey, look, like the expectation is supposed to be like you on your own. If you're not meeting it in months 1 through 3, like that's probably pretty likely because you don't know what you're doing unless you were a prior officer somewhere else. So what we did, we ended up, we had a big discussion with all our FTOs and the training division, and we came up with a new way to do it. It's kind of, I guess you can describe it as on a curve. We now use Frontline. I don't know if anyone else uses Frontline for their daily observation reports, but it's a fairly customizable software suite. And I'm not here to advertise. I don't work for Frontline. I'm not here to advertise. I just happen to really like the software and it's fun. They gave me admin access to it so I can like modify stuff, and we've had a big role to play. So we grade them on like each month has its own set of expectations. Like we have a 1 through 7. So month 1, you should be getting somewhere between like a 1 and a 2 on there. And then month 2 and so on and so forth, your score should be progressively going up. So that way each the trainee now knows that, okay, if I'm getting 1s and 2s in month 1, that I'm not like a total like putz, like I know what I'm doing, at least for this phase. Now if you're getting 1s or 2s in month 4, that becomes a problem. So it's like everyone knows what to expect now, and it's not as depressing or crushing to some people. So like it's a lot better, and the system itself is easily searchable, and like there's more analytics that go into it now. So it's much easier to keep track of a trainee who's struggling, so less people get lost in the shuffle.
So Frontline, if you're listening, reach out to Dave Hochberg,
Yeah.
Team Hochberg, and you can also be a sponsor of this.
Sponsor of, yep. Well played.
Yeah, I don't get any money from Frontline whatsoever. I just like the software.
All right. And next month when he's executive vice president, he's on the board, and he submits his resignation to the Elgin Police Department. I'm giving you my 2-week notice. You can forward my mail to Frontline. All right, so I'll go around the horn. I'll end it with Chief Lalley. So Kirk, what Kirk and Dave, or Chief Brueggeman, Chief Byrd, sorry for your for calling you by your first names.
That's my name.
What did you? I know, but out of respect, you've earned the position. What did you guys learn from hearing your staff, Dave? The officers on your team, and Kirk. From a 5,000-foot view, from the officers and the FTOs. I'll throw it to you, and then I'll end it with Chief Lalley out in Elgin.
I mean, realistically, when I listen to what these FTOs, they're saying the same thing that my FTOs are saying. It's all throughout the state. We're all in it. We have the same message. We have the same mission to bring good law enforcement, to bring good police officers into our profession. And, they are the front line, and that's a huge thing. So it's really comforting. They're seeing, front line. Yeah. So they're doing exactly what we're doing throughout the state. Yeah. So, and we all, whether you're in Southern Illinois or Northern Illinois or Central Illinois, we're all facing the same problems. We're all doing the same job. We're all doing the same mission. And it's really comforting to see you got really good people all throughout the state, teaching our new recruits how to do this job. So we love it.
Chief Byrd?
Yeah, so truly, with me coming from the Illinois State Police and coming here to DeKalb, only 2 agencies I've ever worked for. So you see the comparisons, Dave. It's similar. A lot of things that ISP did, I see here at DPD, but one of the biggest things for me, I always told my FTOs, whether I was with the state police or here at DeKalb, is documentation. You got to document. It's so important. Like you got to, and one thing about, and I want to give Officer Cooper some kudos. Although she's a young officer, she's one of our best FTOs. So, and she documents. I read a lot of her reports. Especially we've had to release some officers who Officer Cooper trained, and her documentation was amazing. Like it was detailed. This officer, as we talked earlier, I think Officer Alcorn said, there shouldn't be any surprises. We didn't have any surprises. She did a great job of documenting their progress or lack of progress. And when it came time to, make that tough call about terminating their employment, it was a lot easier because the documentation was appropriate, and it was concise and detailed. So at the end of the day, it's extremely important that you do it, whether they're going to make it or not. You document, and you document. If they make it, fantastic. If they can't cut it, like you said, Dave, we can't. It's upon us. It's our responsibility as chiefs, especially, to not allow someone to continue in a position, in a law enforcement position, if they cannot handle just the most minor details of being a police officer. You can't cut that, then we got to cut you loose. It's to your benefit and to the public, and of course, every officer in the building. So hopefully we try not to do it often, but sometime it happens, Dave. But I want to thank all the field training officers. You guys are amazing. I know how tough the job is. Like I said, I've done it. And then to the probationary officers, I'm excited for you. I'm glad. Congratulations to all of you that have gone to solo patrol. That's the biggest time of your life, when you can get out of that seat and do things your way and not have to look over your shoulder. So I know you guys are happy about that, and be safe, all of you. Thanks, Dave.
Chief Lalley, you've got FTO Zop, Varga, and Elkhorn, and newly minted officers Soto, Velasquez, and Vargas. Which one out of the 3 FTOs and the 3 officers do you like the most? And do you like
Oh my
the least?
God. Oh, no, I'm not answering that question. I like all of them equally, and they all have, and I truly mean that. They, you get to know people's personalities over the years, and you get to see kind of what makes people tick, and I truly appreciate what you guys do. And for the young officers, they're learning a lot of stuff. I asked them before we went on the show here, I said, I just threw this out to our training sergeant. I said, ask some of the FTOs if they'd like to come on the show with me, and see if there's any recruits that like to, or newer officers. There are no hostages in the Elgin Police Department, so people volunteer to do this. And when I was asking them, why did you guys want to do it? And they're like, we were asked if we wanted to do something, and we do. And I love that, because in Elgin, it doesn't matter if you're day 1 or you're year 30. When expected to show our professionalism and how proud we are of the department and how we represent ourselves. And so we instill that in people on day 1. So I'll just leave it saying thank you guys for everything. Thank you, Officer Cooper and Ortiz, for what you guys do as well, and for the public, the community watching this, and the other police chiefs. Who you put in those positions, those FTOs. You have to have good people, right? My recruiting philosophy is very simple: good head, good heart. Your FTOs need to have the same thing, because they are inspiring the next generation of law enforcement officers. And you have to make sure that their moral compass is set where it needs to be, and that they understand the philosophy and mission of the organization, which ultimately is to take care of the community. It's that simple. So, and for the community, we're lucky to have some really great FTOs training some officers that are going to be in this community for a very, very, very long time. And most of the time, FTO, I was an FTO, and most of the supervisors here, FTOs become supervisors. They become your commanders, your lieutenants, your sergeants, your chiefs, right? So, because that's something inherently in them, to want to help people and to guide and to mentor and lead. And you never know who's watching. I had some FTOs and I was like, ooh, I'm not doing that. I mean, I'll do it now because I need to pass this month, but I'm not going to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because people learn differently. But I'll just leave it on that and say, appreciate everyone. Thank you for all law enforcement agencies in Illinois who are FTOs, and thank you for the work that you do.
All right. In closing, again, show sponsored by Team Hochberg. Need a mortgage? Call me. I'll also put a plug out. We also host a show here on WGN, Saturdays 10 until 1. So if you're driving around in your car, got nothing better to listen to, we've got a pretty entertaining show about real estate, 10 to 1 on Saturdays. So special shout out. Thank you to Officers Cooper and Ortiz and the 17 officers from the Elgin Police Department in Chief Lalley's office.
25.
We'll only announce 6 of them because of time. Officer Elkhorn, Officer Soto, Officer Velasquez, Officer Vargas, Zop, and Varga. For the FTOs, thank you for what you guys and gals do. And for the new officers and existing officers, Officer Cooper, thank you for what you do. Good luck in your careers. This has been another exciting episode of Behind the Badge Illinois. If you like this, please like it, share, and comment on it. Spread the word as much as we can. We want to get the information into as many of our listeners' hands as possible so they could really see what goes on behind the scenes at the local level for each police agency out there throughout the great state of Illinois. With that, we'll see you next week.